Have you ever felt exhausted just because of someone's unintentional remark? Sometimes it's just a criticism, an indifferent look, or a seemingly small comparison that we hold on to in our hearts all day long. Sometimes a single online comment is enough to keep us awake at night. A fleeting judgment makes us wonder if we're as bad as people say. You see, people today are busy in a hectic life, having to worry about so many things for their livelihood. But strangely, what hurts them the most isn't hardship, but words. I understand, because I used to be just like you. There were times I sat alone, recalling unintentional remarks someone made, letting them replay in my mind like an endless tape. I thought they hurt me, but in reality, I was the one who allowed those words to enter my mind, settle there, and sprout into anxieties. The Buddha taught that others' words are merely a passing breeze, but our mind is the door. If we open the door to let the wind in, the room will be disturbed. But if we close it, keeping only inner stillness, no matter how hard the wind blows, it cannot make us waver. What makes us suffer isn't others' words, but how we take them to heart. That statement seems simple, but it's a profound lesson in Buddhism, because the mind is the root of suffering. When the mind is agitated, we are easily hurt by everything around us. But when the mind is at peace, praise, criticism, and gossip are just like small ripples that gently fade away. The outside world is inherently noisy, and public opinion never stops talking. If we keep chasing after every one of those voices, we will be exhausted. But if we stop, turn inward, and listen to our breath, we will see that nothing out there can truly hurt us unless we allow it. Try relaxing your shoulders a bit, my friend. Inhale deeply, letting the cool, fresh air flow through you. Exhale slowly, allowing all the words of the world to dissipate like mist. Life is short. Don't let the noise out there steal the peace within your mind. People can say what they want, but you have the right to choose not to pay attention. They can judge, they can scrutinize, but that's their business. As for you, you just need to keep your heart light as a cloud, calm as a deep, windless lake. When we learn to be silent in the face of meaningless words, our hearts will naturally find peace. When we understand that whatever people say, as long as our mind remains undisturbed, this world cannot harm us. Every negative word, every criticism, is just like a gust of wind blowing by. You cannot stop the wind, but you can choose to stand firm and not let it sway your heart. So today, let's start with a small practice. When someone says something that upsets you, don't react hastily. Don't quickly think they're wrong. Just take a deep breath, then smile inwardly. Silently tell yourself that people's words are just a passing breeze. Then move on. Each time you do this, you are learning to speak less, learning to let go of meaningless noise, so your mind becomes lighter. Because true peace is not out there, but right within your breath, within the silence of your own mind. You know, in this life, there are times when we feel like we need to speak out so others understand. But the more we speak, the more distant everything seems. Someone asked me why, even though I spoke sincerely, people still didn't understand. I just smiled, because I also had days like that. The more I tried to explain, the more exhausted my heart felt. The more I wanted to prove my innocence, the more I was misunderstood. Gradually, I realized that sometimes silence is the wisest answer. Not because we are weak, but because we understand that when the mind is not at peace, any words are just wind. People often rush to judge before hearing the full sentence, to conclude before seeing the whole picture. If we keep trying to justify ourselves, we are just running in an endless cycle of rivalry. But when we choose silence, we are stopping. Not because we lost, but because we want to preserve our own peace. There's a strange law of life. The more you argue, the more energy you lose. The more you talk, the more easily your heart becomes chaotic. Conversely, when you are silent, energy begins to return, and your mind gradually becomes clearer, lighter. The Buddha once taught that speech is one of the 3 most important types of karma. Every word we utter, if not illuminated by mindfulness, can become an invisible knife that hurts others, and also a rope that binds our own mind. When we are angry, words easily turn into fire. When we are afraid, words easily turn into a hazy smoke. But when we are calm, words, if any, will be like clear water, reflecting the true heart of a person. Speaking little is not due to ignorance, but because we understand that truly important things don't require many words. Silence is not avoidance, but a form of wisdom. The Buddhist Teachings Lin Ung channel remembers a friend named Nam. He lived in Hanoi, a gentle and diligent office worker. He spoke little, but always helped everyone. One day, someone in the company spread a rumor that he spoke ill of his boss. The rumor spread quickly. During coffee breaks and in the hallways, people's eyes looked at him differently. Some whispered, others pretended not to notice. A close friend advised him to speak up and clarify, because silence would make people think he had something to hide. But Nam just quietly smiled and continued working, still greeting people and helping as usual. One afternoon, after everyone had left, the boss called him into the office. Without asking or investigating, she just told him to sit down and review a project they were both working on. It turned out that during their work, the boss had discovered on her own who had spread the rumor. It wasn't Nam. The boss just looked at him and said softly, "Thank you for not saying anything. The person who stays silent amidst the noise is the one I trust the most." After that day, everyone understood. And Nam wasn't overjoyed or triumphant. He just smiled gently, because he knew that sometimes saying nothing is precisely how the truth speaks for itself. I think Nam's story is nothing extraordinary, but it makes us reflect on ourselves. How many times have we been exhausted just trying to prove something? How many times have we burdened our own minds just because we couldn't accept being misunderstood? When we suffer from being misunderstood, we are actually clinging to the desire for others' approval. We forget that others only see a small part of our lives, while we are the ones who know best how we are living. The Buddha taught that one who knows when to stop speaking is one who practices in every breath. Because words not only create external karma, but also reflect internal karma. Some people speak very eloquently and a lot, but their minds are chaotic. Others barely need to speak, yet every action exudes peace and silence. If silence comes from understanding, it is not an empty space, but a luminous one. It helps us hear our own inner voice and also hear the voice of life clearly. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught that a wise person, if unable to speak wholesome words, should remain silent. This statement sounds simple, but it is very profound. Because often, wholesome words are not sweet words, but words that arise from a mind free of vexations. When our mouth is silent, but our mind is still noisy, that is not true silence. When the mind is truly peaceful, we no longer need to cling to silence, because silence will naturally arise. One who knows silence is not fearful, but understands that all arguments only hurt both sides. One who chooses silence is not defeated, but desires to keep their heart at peace. In this life, we will encounter countless words. Some praise makes us happy, some criticism makes us sad. But the Buddha taught that both praise and blame are impermanent. What people praise today, they may turn their backs on tomorrow. Only one who knows how to keep their mind calm will not be swept away by the storms. Silence, in Buddhism, is not the stillness outside of sound, but the quietness within the consciousness. It is when we hear all words, yet our heart remains light and at peace. There is a beautiful image in meditation, a calm lake. When the wind blows, the water ripples, and the lake can no longer reflect the sky. But when the wind stops and the water is still, the clouds reappear clearly. The human mind is similar. When we talk too much, argue too much, the mind is like disturbed water, unable to reflect the true nature of things. But when we are silent, like a calm lake, wisdom naturally awakens within us, seeing everything clearly. This is the art of silence, when the mind is liberated from the need to prove itself, to win or lose. Think about it. In a day, how many words do we speak? And how many of them are truly necessary? Often, we speak to fill a void, to make others understand us, to avoid loneliness. But when we learn to be silent, we realize that silence is not lonely, but very complete. Because in silence, we hear our breath, our heartbeat, the call of peace. Silence does not make us lose anything. On the contrary, it helps us find ourselves. Today, try practicing a small thing. In a conversation, when someone says something that bothers you, stop. Don't react hastily. Don't try to explain. Just take a deep breath in and breathe out very gently. In that moment, let your breath embrace your mind. Tell yourself, I choose silence, so my heart can be at peace. Then observe how that anger or sadness dissipates. You will see that the power of silence is far greater than words. If someone is misunderstanding you, let time answer. The truth doesn't need noise. And if you accidentally say something that hurts others, apologize with a sincere heart. Silence doesn't mean avoidance, but knowing when to stop at the right time to keep your mind pure. One who practices in silence is walking the path of awakened consciousness. Every word spoken is illuminated by mindfulness. Every moment of silence is an opportunity to look deeply into one's own mind. This is the art of living, the path to inner freedom. When the mind is no longer disturbed by praise or blame, when we know how to be silent amidst the noisy world, we will find our hearts naturally bright, like the moonlight on a calm lake. At the end of the day, when the world's noise has ceased, sit quietly for a moment. Place your hands on your chest and listen to your heartbeat. Inhale, knowing you are inhaling. Exhale, knowing you are exhaling. In that breath, let all judgments and all noises gradually fade away. Then smile gently, because you have understood that silence is the voice of peace. And a person who speaks little is not because they don't know how to speak, but because they know that everything necessary is already within the stillness of their mind. My dear friend, have you ever felt tired because of what others say about you? Sometimes it's just a slight criticism, a fleeting comment, but it makes our heart feel as heavy as if carrying the whole sky. Sometimes just hearing a false rumor about ourselves makes our heart ache and keeps us awake all night. We ask ourselves why people misunderstand us so much. Why do they say such hurtful things? And the more we think, the sadder and more hurt we feel, wishing to explain ourselves completely. But the more we talk, the more people seem to disbelieve. The more we explain, the more we are accused of making excuses. The more we react, the more we are met with suspicious glances. And ultimately, we become exhausted by our very desire to be understood by others. The Buddhist Teachings Lin Ung channel once heard a teacher say, "What makes people suffer is not the words of the world, but our minds being too weak, too easily disturbed. If the mind is strong enough, criticism is like a passing breeze. If the mind is bright enough, praise will not lead to self-satisfaction." But humans are born into this world, and who doesn't long to be loved, understood, and recognized? That is why when we are misunderstood or criticized, we suffer. When others speak harshly to us, we are hurt. Therefore, learning to let go of worldly words is actually a very long, very difficult process, but also a journey to spiritual growth. Huang's story is an example of this. She was a young woman who had just graduated, full of enthusiasm and dreams. On her first day at the company, Huang believed that as long as she worked hard and did a good job, everyone would like and respect her. But life doesn't work as we imagine. At that company, some people liked to flatter, some liked to gossip behind backs, and some would try to undermine anyone who was praised. At first, Huang didn't understand. She remained innocent, sincere, and helped her colleagues to the best of her ability. But then the words started coming. Some said she was putting on a show. Others said she was flattering the boss. And some even called her fake. Initially, Huang just brushed it off with a smile. But when those words reached her manager, and when her colleagues' eyes gradually changed, she felt her heart ache. She tried to explain, tried to recount everything. But the more she spoke, the more muddled everything became. Some pretended to listen, some avoided her. She realized that her words no longer carried weight. No matter how sincerely she spoke, others only believed what they wanted to believe. Every evening, she would lie awake, thinking, feeling resentful and wronged. One day, while browsing online for psychology lectures, she accidentally heard a Dharma talk by Tish Phuoc Tien. The teacher said something that made her stop short. Don't try to make others understand you, because they only listen with their ears, not with their hearts. If you live right, time will prove it. Hearing that, Huang burst into tears. She realized that for so long she had lived wanting others' praise, wanting others' understanding, forgetting that the most important thing was to live true to her own heart. From that day on, Huang practiced being more silent, no longer complaining, no longer explaining. Whenever someone said something, she would just smile, nod gently, and return to focus on her work. At first, her silence made many people uncomfortable. They talked more, teased more, but gradually they grew tired, while Huang became more and more composed. She no longer cared who liked her, who disliked her, or what anyone said behind her back. She only thought, I am here to work, to learn, to grow. I don't need to please anyone. Days passed. She worked diligently, responsibly, without complaining. When others made mistakes, she gently helped. When others misunderstood her, she maintained a calm demeanor. One day, her boss needed someone to represent the company, to present a project to partners. No one volunteered. Finally, the boss chose Huang. Everyone was surprised. Some even objected. But Huang didn't argue, didn't say a word, just accepted the task. That presentation, she did very well. The project was successful, the partners were satisfied, and the boss praised her in front of the entire company. And then the criticisms disappeared, replaced by respect. But what made her happiest wasn't the recognition, but the peace within her own mind. After that day, Huang told me, before I thought I had to explain, had to justify myself to be understood by others. But it turns out that when I am calm, silent, and focus on doing the right thing, everything clarifies itself. My silence, in the end, was the most powerful answer. That story reminded me of a teaching of the Buddha. The wise speak little, but every word they utter is beneficial. The foolish speak many words, but their words only bring vexation. Silence in Buddhism is not endurance, but wisdom. When we are silent, we are practicing letting go of the need for others' approval. When we speak little, we are practicing self-restraint. Because the bigger the ego, the more easily it is hurt by the words of others. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "He who knows many words but does not act is like a cowherd counting others' cows. He does not partake of the benefits of practice." This statement is very profound because it reminds us that words are not the measure of value. Rather, it is actions and intentions. When we speak less, we have more time to listen, to observe, to understand. And from that, wisdom arises. I know that in life, there are words that make you want to jump up and react immediately, such as being slandered, misrepresented, or judged. But remember, every time you speak in anger, you are sowing a seed of anxiety in your mind. Every time you argue, you are losing valuable, peaceful energy. But when you choose silence, you are nurturing a seed of wisdom. Silence at the right time is not blind endurance, but stopping to observe, to understand. Because when you understand, you no longer need to prove yourself. If someone is speaking ill of you, let them speak. If someone criticizes you, let them criticize. Because their words do not change who you are. Only when you believe those words does your mind suffer. But when you see that all praise and criticism are impermanent, you will be able to smile. It's like standing in front of the wind. You cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can choose not to let the wind carry you away. Try a small practice. When someone says something that hurts you, stop. Take a slow, deep breath. Then exhale very gently. Ask yourself, is this true? Does it define who I am? If the answer is no, let it go like a passing breeze and return to your work, to your breath, to the inner stillness. In meditation, it is said that when our mouth is silent, our mind is bright. Every time we are silent is every time we learn to turn inward, no longer needing to win or lose, no longer needing to be right or wrong, just needing to keep our heart pure. That is enough. And that very silence will help us see the most miraculous thing, that peace is not out there, but right within this breath. When you have truly let go of worldly words, you will find your heart light as a cloud. No one can hurt you anymore because you no longer grant that power to anyone. People can say what they want, the world can be noisy, but within your mind, you still have a peaceful sky. That is true freedom. Freedom from the noise of the world and from the noise within your own mind. Tonight, before you sleep, try to sit quietly. Close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and whisper, "I don't need everyone to understand me. I just need to understand myself." Then inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Every breath is a release. Every moment of silence is a gift. And when you open your eyes, you will see that the world is still noisy, but your heart is different. Peace does not come from people stopping talking, but from when you stop paying attention. My dear friend, after going through Huang's story, the young woman who learned to let go of worldly words, I believe that in your heart you have also felt some of the power of silence. Silence is not evasion, but a conscious choice. However, there is a deeper matter we need to re-examine, which is the root of all turmoil in relationships, of so many misunderstandings and sufferings that people unintentionally sow. That is karma from speech. In life, words seem light, but actually possess infinite power. A word can warm someone's heart, or it can hurt someone like a knife. Sometimes, just because of a single statement, friendships crack, families drift apart, and hearts are wounded. We speak in anger without realizing it. Each word is like an arrow shot, never to return. Words spoken, no matter how many times we apologize, the wound in another's heart may still remain. Have you ever experienced such a feeling? A slip of the tongue, a moment of impulsiveness, followed by endless regret. The Buddha once taught that speech is one of the 3 most important types of karma: bodily karma, verbal karma, and mental karma. Among them, verbal karma is what people commit most easily because the mouth often precedes the mind. That statement seems simple, but contains a profound truth about cause and effect. Verbal karma is karma born from words. When we speak words that are wrong, evil, or hurtful, that energy does not disappear. It returns to our own mind, forming the root of suffering. Try to notice how many words we speak in a day, how many of those words truly bring joy and peace, and how many words arise only from annoyance, comparison, or judgment. The Buddha taught that among the 10 unwholesome actions, verbal karma accounts for 4. This alone is enough to understand that speech is a gateway that easily leads people astray in the current of karma. When we utter a word of criticism, we are sowing a seed of unwholesome karma. When we speak lies, we tarnish our own trustworthiness. When we engage in gossip, we unintentionally fuel the fires of misunderstanding that burn others. And when we speak words of hatred, we are burning ourselves in that fire. Therefore, guarding our speech is guarding our mind. People who speak little are not fearful. They understand. They understand that every word spoken carries energy. Speaking kindly sows blessings. Speaking harshly creates karma. I remember the story of Mrs. Two, a neighbor known by everyone in the neighborhood. She was quick-witted, lively, and loved to chat with others, but her quick tongue sometimes caused a lot of trouble. In the countryside, stories about this person or that person often became topics of conversation every afternoon. Mrs. Two unintentionally became the source of many stories. Once, during a conversation, she overheard a rumor that a neighbor's house had lost something, and whether intentionally or not, she recounted to others that, "I heard Sister Han took it." The rumor spread like wildfire, reaching Sister Han, causing her immense pain and humiliation. Sister Han tried to explain, but Mrs. Two's words had sown a difficult-to-erase suspicion in others' hearts. A few months later, Mrs. Two's son had an accident on his way home from work. Although he was only slightly injured, it terrified her. In her worry, she began to seek out temples to listen to Dharma talks about karma. Once, the abbot said in a Dharma talk that there are 3 types of karma, among which verbal karma is easy to create, but difficult to undo. A single wrong word can create karma faster than an action. Be careful, because the mouth is a door to blessings, and also a door to misfortune. Mrs. Two listened and felt a chill. She suddenly remembered the words she had spoken years ago, all the rumors she had helped spread. From that day on, she resolved to speak less. Every morning, she chanted the Buddha's name. Every afternoon, she recited scriptures, practicing observing every word she was about to speak. Gradually, she changed. People in the neighborhood noticed she spoke less, was gentler. Mrs. Two was still cheerful and smiled, but no longer gossiped about others. If anyone came to gossip, she would just smile and say, "We've talked enough about village matters. Let's chant the Buddha's name now." And the miraculous thing was that, after a few months, she felt a lightness in her heart. When she recounted the story to me, she said, "Guarding your mouth is guarding your blessings, my child. Before, I thought talking was just for fun, but I never knew that talking could lose blessings. Talking could make people suffer." I suddenly saw in Mrs. Two's eyes, at that moment, a peace that hadn't been there before. The peace of someone who had understood the value of silence. You see, just one word can create karma. But from that same mouth, we can also create blessings. When we know how to speak words of love, encouragement, and compassion, we are sowing seeds of blessing. The Buddha taught that one who speaks truthfully, gently, and brings benefit to others will receive good karmic results. Conversely, one who speaks evil, divisive, or deceptive words will bring suffering upon themselves. Cause and effect never err. Every word is a seed. Today we speak kindly. Tomorrow we reap peace. Today we speak unkindly. Tomorrow we encounter suffering, all stemming from our own mouth. Therefore, one who practices in life, whether practicing actions, mind, or speech, the first thing is still to learn to guard the mouth. Guarding the mouth is not remaining silent out of fear, but being mindful to know when to speak and when to be silent, how to speak beneficially, how to speak compassionately, how to keep the mind undisturbed. When our mind is clear, our words are naturally pure. When our mind is angry, our words are naturally sharp. Like a stream. If the water is clear, the bottom of the stream is visible. If the water is muddy, it's full of black sludge. The human mind is the same. Have you ever sat quietly just to listen to yourself speak? Listening to yourself in every breath, every thought, before uttering any words. Many times, in a single sentence, you will recognize how many hidden thoughts lie behind it. A bit of wanting to win, a bit of anger, a bit of pride, a bit of wanting to prove something. And it is these thoughts that are the seeds of verbal karma. If we can see them, we will stop. When the Buddha was alive, he once asked his disciples, "Are people wounded by swords and knives, or by words?" The disciples replied, "By swords and knives, Blessed One." The Buddha smiled and said, "You are wrong. A knife can make the body bleed, but words can make the heart ache for a lifetime." Indeed, many people are hurt not by actions, but by words. A harsh word, an insult, can deeply wound a soul. That emotional wound, even as time passes, sometimes still festers. Therefore, in practice, the Buddha taught us right speech, which means words that are truthful, gentle, and beneficial to others. Right speech is one of the 8 paths of the Noble Eightfold Path. This means that one who follows the path of enlightenment must know how to speak so as not to cause harm. To speak truthfully, yet with compassion. To speak what is right, yet without causing injury. To speak beneficially, yet meaningfully. I often advise listeners to practice observing their breath before speaking. When about to say something, take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. In that breath, you will have time to recognize your true intention. If the words are spoken out of love, then speak. If the words are spoken out of anger, out of a desire to prove something, then smile and be silent. Just one breath is enough to save you from an argument, a hurt, an unnecessary karma. Try to imagine your mind as a pond. Every word is a small stone thrown into it. If your mind is calm, the water will only ripple gently before returning to peace. But if your mind is full of storms, every word will make the pond churn, seeing nothing but turbidity. So, let your mind be like a still lake, and your mouth like a clear stream. Then you will see that silence is no longer a burden, but a door opening to peace. Once, a friend of the Buddhist teachings Lin Ung channel asked why practitioners often speak little, while ordinary people tend to talk a lot. I replied that it's because practitioners hear the inner voice, while ordinary people only hear external voices. When you start to hear your inner voice, you will no longer rush to say useless things. You will understand that sometimes silence is the way to protect the energy of the mind. My dear friend, try to spend 1 hour each day in stillness. Don't speak, don't text, don't argue. Just sit quietly, observe your breath, and listen to your inner voice. At first, you may feel empty, sometimes sad, sometimes restless, but gradually you will find your mind lightens. The need to explain, to react, to say something diminishes. It is in silence that you will find your true strength. And if you have ever made mistakes with your words, don't blame yourself excessively. All of us have said things we later regretted. The important thing is that after realizing it, we know to stop and repent. Every act of repentance is a cleansing of the mind. The Buddha taught that no one is free from error. One who recognizes their mistakes and corrects them is truly a practitioner. From today, you can start practicing a small thing. Before sleeping, close your eyes, inhale deeply, and recall today. What words did you say that made others happy? And what words made others sad? For words that made others happy, smile and give thanks. For words that made others sad, silently say, "I'm sorry." Just a small action, but it will make your mind more peaceful each day. Because guarding your mouth is guarding your blessings. Every gentle word is a seed of blessing. Every timely silence is a step on the path to liberation. One who speaks little, their mind naturally brightens. One who knows silence, their heart naturally finds peace. That is the wisdom of a practitioner in daily life. And if one day someone speaks ill of you, instead of reacting, just smile. Remember, people's words are wind. Your mind is a lake. Wind can stir, but a calm lake remains still. As long as you keep your mind serene, people's words will pass like clouds in the sky, unable to tarnish the moonlight in your heart. I wish that in your daily words, you always maintain mindfulness, knowing when to speak and when to stop. Knowing that speaking little is not because there is nothing to say, but because you understand that the most important thing is to keep your mind at peace. When you know how to listen with your heart, you will see that silence is also a form of compassion. And when you know how to use words to soothe instead of harm, you are walking on the path of wisdom and love. You see, in this life, sometimes just one word can break a heart. But also, sometimes just one word can revive someone. We constantly live amidst countless voices: praise, criticism, jokes, sarcasm. And amidst all that, sometimes we forget that every sound we utter has the power to create a type of energy. That energy is either wholesome or harmful. And that very energy will return to nourish or deplete our lives. Have you ever noticed that people who speak gently and inclusively are loved wherever they go? It's not because they are good at flattery, but because there is stillness and understanding within them. They speak little, but say what is worth saying, speaking from the heart. Their words do not hurt anyone, but are like cool drops of water, irrigating dry souls. Conversely, there are people who, as soon as they open their mouths, complain, scold, and criticize. And gradually, no one wants to be near them. And the bad energy from their own words returns, making their lives difficult, lonely, and full of gossip. The Buddha once taught that a single evil word is more harmful than 1,000 knives piercing the heart. That statement speaks not only of external harm, but also of harm within oneself. Because when we utter a harmful word, our mind immediately becomes agitated. Anger and delusion arise, and wholesome thoughts are obscured. Every evil word spoken is like sowing a poisonous seed in our own field of blessings. Conversely, wholesome speech is a seed of blessing. Every time we speak words of kindness, forgiveness, or understanding, we are sowing blessings for ourselves, for others, and for life. But unfortunately, often we don't realize this. We think only actions create karma, but words do not. In fact, verbal karma is the fastest type among the 3 karmas: body, speech, and mind. Because words uttered immediately can make people happy or cause them suffering instantly. A wrong action can sometimes be corrected, but a wrong word spoken can often never be taken back in a lifetime. I remember a small story that my teacher once told in a Dharma talk. In those days, there was a man named Sao living in a rural village in central Vietnam. Mr. Sao was known for his hot temper. If anyone disagreed with him, he would curse, speak harsh words, and even insult others at the market, at home, or in the neighborhood. Mr. Sao was always the center of heavy conversations. People feared him, not because he was fierce, but because his mouth was so sharp. Every time he got angry, the whole family trembled. Mr. Sao lived in poverty, toiling all year round without getting ahead. His children also didn't get along. The eldest left home to work far away, not wanting to talk to his father. His wife was sad and silently endured. Then, one day, he went to the temple with a friend. During the Dharma talk, the abbot said that speech is the root of cause and effect. An evil word sown is a poisonous seed that will yield suffering. To have a peaceful life, one must first learn to speak kindly. Mr. Sao listened as if someone held a mirror to his heart. He thought of all the times he made others cry, thought of his son leaving because he couldn't bear his father's curses. That night, he couldn't sleep. The teacher's words echoed in his head. Guard your mouth is guarding your blessings. The next morning, he went out to the porch, looked at the star fruit tree in the yard, and felt a slight lightness in his heart. He tried to practice silence. When someone spoke wrongly, he didn't react immediately, but took a deep breath. At first, it was very difficult, but then each day, he found his heart calmer. Gradually, he began to practice saying, "Thank you," "I'm sorry," and words of encouragement. Every time his son came to visit, he no longer yelled, but simply asked, "Are you well?" From those simple words, the family atmosphere changed. His wife was happier, his children smiled more, and their business also became more prosperous. Once he recounted to his friend, "I never knew my mouth was either a blessing or a curse. Back then, I thought money brought blessings, but I never knew that just by cursing less and speaking less ill, blessings would come naturally." You see, it's not a miracle. It's just that when wholesome words are uttered, good energy spreads, and the universe responds with wholesome things. Mr. Sao's story reminds me of an old anecdote in the Dhammapada. There was a person who spent their entire life cursing and swearing, and after death was reborn as a dog, constantly barking and never finding peace. This is not a threat, but an allegory for the karmic retribution of speech. When we live by harmful words, that energy remains in our consciousness. After the body perishes, that karmic force drags us into a corresponding realm of rebirth. One who speaks kindly and loves others will be reborn in a wholesome, peaceful realm. One who speaks evil, hurtful words will be reborn in a lower realm. All of this is natural cause and effect, not punishment by anyone. The Buddha taught that there are 4 types of speech to avoid: lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and meaningless speech. Among these, harsh speech, rude, insulting, and critical words, is what creates karma the fastest. Every time we curse someone, anger arises in our mind, and that energy immediately shoots out of our mouth, penetrates space, and touches the hearts of others and ourselves. When we scold someone, we are actually poisoning ourselves. Because after speaking, our heart is not at peace, but full of anger, regret, and shame. Conversely, one who knows how to speak words of loving kindness, even just "thank you" or "I wish you peace," is also creating blessings. The Buddha taught that loving speech is a great means to transform animosity. Often, a gentle word has more power than 1,000 logical arguments. When we speak softly, the listener suffers less, and we also feel lighter. Every loving word is a wholesome incense stick offered to the universe. Try to notice there are some people who, just by their presence, even before they speak, make you feel comfortable, because the energy from their hearts is gentle. But there are also people who, before opening their mouths, make others feel uneasy. This is because the energy of speech lies not only in the sound, but in the mind from which the words originate. If our mind is angry and deluded, our words will carry that energy of anger and delusion. If our mind is compassionate, our words will carry healing energy. Therefore, to speak wholesome words, we must first maintain a wholesome mind. When the mind is at peace, words naturally become clear. When the mind is bright, words naturally shine. The calmer the mind, the fewer the words, but each word has value. Conversely, the more agitated the mind, the more numerous the words, and they are all unnecessary. Speaking much but meaninglessly, speaking wrongly but hurtfully, is no different from gradually burning away one's own blessings. Do you remember the last time someone said something that warmed your heart? Maybe it was just, "I understand you," or "It's okay, everything will be fine." Those words are small, but they have immense soothing power. And do you remember a time when someone said something that hurt you? Words are just a passing breeze, but why did they keep us awake for so many nights? Just this alone will make you understand that words are not light at all. They carry stronger energy than weapons because they touch the heart. From this, we understand the Buddha's teaching. Speak truthful words, gentle words, timely words, words that bring benefit. Every time you speak, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I need to say this? Will it make others happy? Will it bring me peace? If not, choose silence. Because silence with mindfulness is not weakness, but strength. A small practice I often do is every morning before talking to anyone, I silently affirm in my heart, "May I speak wholesome words today." When someone makes me upset, I take 3 deep breaths, look at them, and slow down my speech. Gradually, the hot energy within me dissipates, replaced by clarity. You can try this too. Each day, choose one wholesome word and speak it with all your heart. When you wish someone peace, you are actually sowing a wish for yourself. In Buddhism, there is a practice called loving speech. Loving speech is not just speaking gently, but speaking with a mind of love and understanding. When you say, "I understand you are sad," you are connecting with compassion. When you say, "I wish you happiness," you are offering a blessing. These words not only soothe others, but also warm your heart. And blessings are born from them. You see, words are a bridge between people, between hearts. If that bridge is built with the boulders of hatred, it will collapse. But if it is built with the wood of compassion, it will be firm and beautiful. Therefore, practice speaking words like one who sows seeds of blessing. Every morning, sow a few wholesome words. Every evening, chant the Buddha's name in silence. Gradually, you will see your life change. Everything will be lighter, your heart more peaceful, and those around you will be more pleasant. I want to send you a small message. Every word uttered is like a seed sown in the hearts of others. Whatever seed you sow, that fruit you will reap. Choose to sow seeds of blessing with gentle words. Don't let your mouth create karma, but let your words become a light guiding you towards the path of wholesomeness. Now, if you can, sit quietly for 1 minute. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, then exhale gently. In your mind, silently affirm the vow to keep your mouth gentle and speak wholesome words. Let your breath bring you back to the present, so every cell in you is bathed in peace. Then tomorrow, when you open your mouth to anyone, remember that you are sowing seeds for your own life. I wish you always speak wholesome words, hear wholesome words, and keep your mind at peace. Because when we live with loving speech, this world also becomes gentler. And it is in that gentleness that blessings begin to blossom, little by little, in every word, every breath, every rhythm of daily life. You know, in life, there are times when people don't need any words to make others understand. Just silence alone is enough to change hearts. Silence is sometimes a bright lamp in the darkness, a gentle breath that helps us calm down amidst the chaos of life. After we have understood that words can create karma and wholesome words can generate blessings, we naturally realize a deeper truth. Silence is also a language of compassion. It is not the silence of resignation, but the stillness of wisdom, of a love great enough not to need to argue, not to need to prove anything anymore. In this world, everyone gets tired of words. Talking a lot, listening a lot, reacting a lot, and then we ourselves become dry. Sometimes, just one word uttered by another can keep us awake all night. Sometimes, wanting to win an argument makes our mind tangled like a ball of thread. The more we talk, the more we suffer. The more we argue, the more we are hurt. Perhaps you and I have both fallen into such moments, wanting to be silent, but unable to. Wanting to endure, but the ego keeps urging us to retaliate. The Buddha taught that among the 10 wholesome actions, speech is the root of 4. Among the 10 unwholesome actions, the mouth is the gate of 3. The human mouth is small, but the karma from speech is immense. Therefore, maintaining silence is maintaining blessings, maintaining the mind. Sometimes silence is also the fastest way to resolve karma, because in silence, anger and delusion have no ground to live. I want to tell you the story of Sister Lan, a very ordinary woman, but with a surprisingly strong heart. She is an elementary school teacher in a small rural area, where life is poor, but people still maintain a gentle way of life. Her husband works as a bricklayer, tired all year round from the sun, wind, and the worries of earning a living. Perhaps because of this, he developed a habit of drinking, and every time he got drunk, he would yell and speak harshly. Their small house was never quiet. Many nights, arguments echoed from the kitchen, making neighbors feel sorry for her. People said Sister Lan was too gentle, too enduring, but few understood. To maintain silence amidst the storms of life she had to shed so many tears. There were nights when she lay facing the wall, tears soaking her pillow, while her husband's angry shouts resounded. There were times she wanted to give up, wanted to retaliate, wanted to prove that she also had limits. But then she remembered her mother's words from childhood. "My child, silence is also a way of practice. When you are silent, your mind still has a place for compassion." Sister Lan began to practice silence, not the silence of fear or resignation, but silence to preserve a little peace in the home. When her husband yelled, she would gently pour a glass of water, place it next to him, and then return to the Buddha altar, sitting still. Sometimes she silently chanted, "Namo Amitabha Buddha," each word slowly and steadily, each chant like a small thread weaving together the torn fragments of her mind. At first, her husband became even angrier and harsher, thinking she was disrespecting him. But then, day by day, he began to notice something strange. One time, in a drunken state, he came home late. The light on the Buddha altar was brightly lit. Sister Lan sat there, her fingers counting prayer beads, her mouth chanting softly, her face calm. There was not a word of reproach, not a glance of anger or resentment, just a woman quietly preserving her family with her breath. He stood there for a long time, watching her, then sat down. For the first time in many years, he burst into tears. He said, "I thought you were silent because you were afraid, but I never knew you were silent to keep me." From that night on, he quit drinking. Every evening, he would sit and listen to her chant scriptures. The deep, warm sound of the chanting echoed in their small house, blending with the sound of crickets outside, creating a rare peace. Gradually, that house became a refuge for many people. Everyone who visited would say, "How does your home have such a peaceful atmosphere?" She would just smile. Sister Lan's story is not just a story about a patient woman, but about the power of silence, of compassion when placed correctly. If she had also yelled that day, if she had also chosen to argue to win, perhaps that family would have fallen apart. But thanks to conscious silence, she preserved a home. You see? Sometimes silence is the guiding light in the darkness of anger. When one side is angry, and the other side is also angry, fire meeting fire only burns the house down. But when one side knows to let the other's fire extinguish itself. The Buddha once taught that anger cannot be extinguished with anger. Only the water of compassion can quench hatred. In life, everyone encounters people who hurt them. They may insult, misunderstand, or even treat us unfairly. Our self-preservation instinct makes us want to react, to talk back, to prove that we are right. But my friend, the more we talk, the more anger spreads. The more we argue, the thicker our karma becomes. Often, just a gentle silence is enough to preserve blessings. Not because we are weak, but because we understand. All words are impermanent. All anger will eventually dissipate. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught about 4 types of people. Those like earth, those like water, those like fire, and those like wind. Those like earth do not resent, no matter what dirt is thrown on them. Those like water, no matter how much they are muddied, naturally become clear again. Those like fire. A tiny spark is enough to flare up, burning both themselves and others. And those like wind, no one can grasp them, and they don't bother with what others say. Sister Lan was like the earth, because she understood that reacting to anger only compounds suffering. I know that sometimes silence is very difficult. When people speak falsely about you, when you are misunderstood, when your heart is hurt, wanting to be silent is a true challenge. But you know what? It is in that very challenge that we are learning the greatest lesson of life, the lesson of letting go and mindfulness. Silence does not mean avoidance. It means stopping to avoid creating further karma. It's like turning off the stove when water is boiling to let it cool down. If you keep stirring the water, it will only get more turbulent. In silence, we have space to reflect on our own minds, to clearly see who is right and who is wrong, but without judgment. We just need to see and let go. A small practice you can try is this. Whenever you want to say something in anger, stop. Take 3 deep breaths, and then ask yourself, will saying this lighten my heart? If not, hold it back. All anger will pass. All words will dissipate. But the blessings or misfortunes resulting from them will remain. I once met a Zen master friend who said that, in life, a wise person is not one who speaks a lot, but one who knows when to be silent. That statement is simple, yet profoundly deep, because timely silence is a form of wisdom. It helps us avoid pointless arguments, avoids burning up our blessings just for a small fit of anger. If today you are suffering because someone misunderstood you, or because someone's words hurt you, please try silence. Not the silence of sadness or resentment, but the silence of one who knows how to see far ahead. Step back. Take a deep breath in, exhale slowly, and smile. Sometimes, just a gentle smile in silence is enough to make the other person stop. The wholesome energy from you will make the unwholesome energy dissipate. Believe that silence is not endurance, but preserving an opportunity for love to revive. Just like Sister Lan, if she had chosen to argue, how could her husband have awakened? But thanks to the stillness of her compassionate heart, he saw the bright example in her eyes, which then inspired him to change. The power of silence lies in that. It doesn't force, doesn't reason, but touches deep within people's hearts. The Buddha taught that a wise person is like a calm lake. Only when the water is still can it reflect the moon's shadow. Only when our mind is at peace can we see the true nature of all things. When we are silent, we hear the inner voice, the voice of compassion and wisdom. So now, try to sit still for a moment, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, and let your breath flow gently in and out. Silently affirm in your heart, I am breathing in. I know I am at peace. Then, I am breathing out. I smile. Just that much, and you have practiced silence. In that silence, all sadness and anger dissolve like smoke. When you learn to be silent amidst the noise, you will understand what true freedom is. No longer suffering from others' words, no longer having to argue about right and wrong. Your mind then is like a clear lake, Wind comes and goes, but the moon remains full. And then one day, you will realize that peace has never been out there, but is always in the very moment you stop speaking, stop thinking, stop reacting. In that silence, you will hear the Buddha's voice in your heart. I wish you, like Sister Lan, can find miracles in silence. Let every moment of silence be a seed of love, every breath a flower of peace. Then, looking back, you will see that those who once caused you suffering are precisely the ones who taught you to grow. Every fit of anger that passes, if you remain silent, you will win. Not winning against others, but winning against yourself. May you, I, and all of us learn to be silent at the right time to resolve karma, to keep our hearts pure, so that one day, looking back at life, we can smile and say, I have learned to be at peace in the winds of life. Have you ever noticed that in moments of anger, just an unintentional word can make the atmosphere in a home so heavy it's suffocating? Sometimes it's just a harsh remark, a reproach, a sigh of frustration. But suddenly, a once warm home turns into a place full of distance. Each person silently retreats into their own sadness, no one wanting to open up anymore. Then, when night falls, lying in the familiar room, hearing the fan whirring, the clock ticking, you suddenly feel your heart heavy. Just because of one word, so much love nurtured for so long is at risk of fracturing. At that moment, we truly understand that guarding our speech is guarding our blessings, and guarding our mouth is guarding our home. In life, everyone experiences moments of tiredness and pressure. Some, due to the burden of livelihood, due to minor conflicts at work, have minds as hot as fire. Some, at just one disagreeable word, immediately react. Words are pouring out without restraint. Then, when the anger passes, we regret it. We blame ourselves. If only I had been silent for a moment. If only I had spoken a little more gently. But life inherently has no if only. Once words are uttered, they are like an arrow leaving the bowstring. They cannot be taken back. They can hurt people, break trust, and even cause a warm home to lose its peaceful breath. The Buddha once taught that a wholesome word can save a person's entire life, while an unwholesome word can destroy a person's entire existence. Hearing this, it might seem like a simple admonition, but when contemplated deeply, we find infinite wisdom hidden within. This is because words are not merely sounds, but energy originating from the mind. When our mind is wholesome, our words are naturally gentle. When our mind is filled with anger, our words naturally become sharp, like an invisible blade cutting into others' hearts. And it is precisely these energies that will return, creating karmic results for ourselves. Guarding the mouth is guarding the mind, and guarding the mind is guarding blessings. For blessings do not come from grand actions, but begin with very small things, like a gentle word, a kind smile, a complete way of listening. Some people, just because they cannot restrain their words, cause their children to become distant, their spouses to become cold, and their parents to grieve. Then, when everything passes, they realize that nothing was worth getting so angry about. It was just that they didn't know when to stop, thus turning small matters into big ones. I remember a Zen master once saying that when people learn to guard their speech, their homes naturally become peaceful. When wholesome words are cultivated, blessings will blossom accordingly. It sounds simple, but to do it is not easy, because the mouth is the gateway of the mind. When the heart is not at peace, the mouth is difficult to be gentle. To have gentle words, one must start by making one's mind calm. Try to look at yourself. Have there been times in a day when you unintentionally said things that saddened others without realizing it? It could be a criticism, a slight sarcastic remark, a thoughtless complaint. These small things, accumulated little by little, are enough to hurt others. In Buddhism, this is called subtle verbal karma. Small karma, but not small consequences. Because every word we utter is a seed sown in people's hearts. Sowing wholesome seeds will surely blossom into good flowers. Sowing unwholesome seeds will only yield suffering. I want to tell you the story of Mr. Fong. An ordinary man like any other, but thanks to a small incident, he awakened to the value of words. Mr. Fong lived in a peaceful rural area with a gentle wife and a son in middle school. He owned a small grocery store, diligently buying and selling every day. Life, though not wealthy, was warm and stable. Then, one rainy afternoon, when the store was crowded, he was tired and annoyed by financial matters. His son ran into the store, innocently asking, "Dad, can I buy this pack of snacks for myself?" Just an innocent question from a child, but at a moment when he was stressed, he couldn't control himself. He yelled loudly, You only know how to ask. You don't earn any money, do you?" That sentence was like a knife stabbing into his son's heart. The boy froze, his eyes red, then ran away. Mr. Fong's wife quickly ran after him, but the child was already far away. That entire night, he didn't see his son return. In the small house, the light illuminated his wife's tear-streaked face. He sat silently, looking at the snack still on the table, his heart aching. His whole life, he had worked diligently, only wishing for his family's peace and happiness. But he never expected that he himself would be the one to ruin everything with just one word. The next morning, he searched everywhere for his son. Fortunately, the boy was found by a neighbor at the end of the village and brought home. When he saw his son, he embraced him, tears streaming down his face. He apologized profusely, but the boy remained silent. In those childlike eyes, deep sadness was etched. From that day on, Mr. Fong changed. He practiced speaking more gently, practiced pausing for a few seconds before uttering words. Every morning, he lit an incense stick on the Buddha altar, silently vowing, "I vow to keep my words wholesome, to preserve peace for this home." He understood that words not only affect others, but also affect his own karma. When he became less angry, the house became warmer. When he smiled more, his son gradually opened up. Once, the boy said, "Dad, I love being home now because you don't yell anymore." Just that one sentence brought tears to his eyes. He realized that the greatest blessing in life is not wealth, but the peace in the hearts of those we love. The Buddha taught that from the mouth comes karma, and from the mouth also comes blessings. When we speak wholesome words, we are sowing blessings. When we speak unwholesome words, we are sowing karma. The mouth is the gate of blessings and misfortune. Guarding it is guarding our blessings. In a family, words are an invisible connecting thread. A loving word can open a heart that was once closed. A word of understanding can resolve many conflicts. Conversely, just one harsh word can deepen the wound in another's heart. If you have witnessed happy families, you will see a common thread. They speak to each other gently. They don't avoid conflicts, but they know when to stop, when to choose silence at the right time, when to say, "I'm sorry," and "thank you." Conversely, cold homes are often not due to a lack of material possessions, but due to an abundance of hurtful words. I once heard a monk say that one who knows how to guard their mouth will naturally attract blessings. One who speaks wholesome words will find happiness, lingering longer. In every wholesome word, there is the energy of compassion. When we speak gently, the listener's heart also lightens. When we speak loving words, the listener's heart is also nourished. Therefore, speak to heal, not to hurt. You can practice this today. When preparing to speak, pause for a breath. Inhale gently, knowing you are inhaling. Exhale slowly, knowing you are exhaling. Then ask your heart, will this word I am about to speak bring peace to anyone? If the answer is no, then smile and be silent. That silence is not avoidance, but wisdom. It helps you preserve blessings, preserve peace, and keep your home from being swept into storms. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that conquering 1,000 armies is not as great as conquering oneself. Conquering oneself is the greatest victory. And sometimes, conquering oneself is simply restraining an angry word. When you can guard your words, you have conquered your instincts. When you conquer your instincts, you open the path to blessings. You can write a small reminder on a piece of paper. Guard words is guarding blessings. Place it where you can easily see it in your home, perhaps on a mirror, on your desk, or where you often meditate. Every morning when you see it, smile, take a deep breath, and remind yourself to live with gentle words. Just that small practice is enough to change the energy of your entire day. I believe that each of us can become a sower of wholesome words. No matter who you are, what your profession, or what your circumstances, you can still start anew with kind words. When you speak good words, that energy will spread like a small candle, lighting up a dark room. When you speak words of love, the listener will feel warm, and you will also feel a lightness in your heart. And if there are times you accidentally utter hurtful words, don't blame yourself endlessly. Know when to stop. Acknowledge your mistake and correct it. Apologizing does not make us smaller, but helps us become greater in the hearts of others. Just a sincere apology can resolve all conflicts. Timely silence, appropriate speech, and correct apologies. These are the 3 keys to preserving blessings in life. You know, in a home, the sound of words is the primary energy that nourishes everyone's soul. When a home is full of gentle words, everyone naturally feels at ease. When a home is filled with arguments and complaints, the atmosphere becomes heavy, and blessings gradually diminish. Therefore, guarding the mouth is guarding blessings. Guarding words is guarding the home. Every gentle sentence is a seed of blessing. Every inclusive smile is a lotus blossoming in the heart. Try to listen deeply within yourself. Listen to every breath, every beat of your heart. Then look at your loved ones beside you. They don't need you to say much. They just need you to speak from a peaceful heart. And sometimes, compassionate silence can have a more powerful healing effect than any words. Finally, I wish you know how to guard your mouth like a treasure, how to speak words like scattering flowers, and how to be silent like meditating. When your words become gentle, your mind will also be gentle. When wholesome words resonate in your home, blessings will remain. And when everyone in the family knows how to listen to each other with a compassionate heart, happiness will naturally blossom like a lotus in a tranquil mind. Have you ever wondered, amidst all the noise of life, all the gossip, all the information each day, have you ever truly been silent? Not silent out of anger, not silent to endure, but silent in awakened consciousness. A silence that has understanding, wisdom, and dwelling. For only when quiet can we truly hear the voice from within our hearts. Today, people live in a world full of sounds. Walking on the street, there are car noises, people talking, advertisements, phones constantly ringing. Returning home, we are still surrounded by other sounds. Social media stories, arguments, endless comments about each other. It seems we have become accustomed to living in noise, to the point that when our surroundings suddenly become quiet, we feel afraid. Afraid to face ourselves, afraid to hear the small voices within our hearts that we have tried to ignore for so long. I understand that feeling because I used to be just like that. There was a time when I loved to talk, to analyze, to debate. I believed that speaking everything out would help me feel lighter. But the more I spoke, the more agitated my mind became. The more I tried to explain, the more I felt others didn't understand me. And then there were times when I was silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because I realized that words sometimes only thicken the layer of clouds, obscuring the light of wisdom in the mind. The Buddha once taught that wisdom does not arise in noise, but blossoms in stillness. I heard that statement a long time ago, but only truly understood it when I started to practice silence. It's not easy to be silent in a world where everyone is talking, speaking up, wanting to prove they are right. But a wise person is not one who talks a lot, but one who knows when to speak and when to be silent. Silence in Buddhism does not mean evasion or shrinking away, but is a profound practice. When we are silent with mindfulness, the mind becomes like a calm lake. On that still water, the sea can reflect its image. Similarly, only when our mind is tranquil can wisdom manifest. Conversely, when the mind is agitated, full of noise, no matter how many beautiful words or ideas we utter, they will only be stray sounds, powerless to touch the truth. Have you noticed? When people are angry, they talk a lot. But the more they talk, the less clearly they see the nature of what they are angry about. When people are afraid, they also often seek words to cover up that fear. But a wise person, when facing suffering, chooses silence. Silence to observe, to listen, to prevent verbal karma from arising. Because words, if not illuminated by wisdom and compassion, can easily become a knife that hurts oneself and others. There is a story I really like about Sister Dio Tam, a nun who practiced in a small temple in the forest. People said that the nun rarely spoke. Many people came to the temple and wondered why the nun didn't teach the Dharma as much as other teachers. The nun just smiled. One day, someone persistently asked again, "Sister, why don't you speak? People come here wanting to hear the Dharma, wanting guidance." The nun softly replied, "Every mindful breath is a Dharma lesson." After hearing this, everyone became silent. They began to observe the nun. Every morning, the nun walked very slowly, each step light as if not touching the ground. She swept the courtyard, cooked rice, watered flowers, all in silence. But that silence was not heavy at all. On the contrary, everyone who came to the temple felt a very peaceful energy. They didn't hear her teach, but just by sitting near her, their hearts would calm down. A little girl once said, "I see the nun not saying anything, but it's like she's speaking. She speaks with her eyes, with the way she breathes, with her gentle smile." That is the practice of the wise, not needing too many words, because sometimes a calm presence itself is the greatest teaching. Sister Dio Tam did not teach the Dharma with spoken words, but by living mindfully in every breath, every step. And I believe that in that silence, countless souls have been healed. You see, silence is not meaningless at all. It is a space for the mind to breathe, a place where the waves of emotion can settle so that we can see the true nature of things more clearly. When we are silent, we hear our own breath, the whisper of compassion, the call of wisdom. When we speak less, the words we do utter will carry more energy, because they are conceived in stillness, filtered through a compassionate heart, and illuminated by the light of understanding. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once taught that one who knows how to speak at the right time speaks truthfully, speaks beneficially, speaks gently, and speaks kindly. Such a person speaks in accordance with the Dharma. This means that words have value only when they arise from a mind that is awakened and clear. Conversely, if words arise from anger or ignorance, even if we speak correctly, it can still create karma. Therefore, silence is a practice that helps us stop to look deeply into our minds before speaking. I remember once meeting a woman over 60. She told me that throughout her youth, she talked a lot, argued, complained, and judged. Until one day, her son left after an argument. She suffered for many years, then accidentally read the Buddha's teachings on verbal karma. She began to practice silence, practiced breathing, practiced listening without reacting. After a few years, her son returned, saying that it was his mother's silence that made him realize the value of peace. She said, "I used to think silence was admitting defeat, but in reality, it was the greatest victory of my life, the victory over my own ego." The ancients taught, learn to eat, learn to speak, learn to wrap, learn to unwrap. Speaking seems easy, but it is actually the hardest, because words are not just sounds, but energy. A word can make someone smile, or it can make them heartbroken for a lifetime. A sentence born of anger can burn away so many blessings we have cultivated for so long. So may the wise guard their words, not out of fear, but because they deeply understand cause and effect. Sometimes, silence is the best answer. If someone insults you, you don't need to argue, because arguing only disturbs your mind, while silence helps your mind find peace. If someone misunderstands you, you don't need to explain, because time and actions will prove everything. Let all the gossip out there drift away like wind. Keep your mind like a calm lake. Then you will see that the clear blue sky is still there, just waiting for the clouds to disperse to reflect its image. In Zen, this is called mindful silence. It's not silence because one doesn't know how to speak, but silence to listen deeply to one's own heart, to listen to understand, not to react. When you are truly silent, you will realize that there are many things within you that you have never seen. Hidden sorrows, forgotten aspirations, even wholesome seeds waiting to sprout. And only when you sit down, take a deep breath in, exhale slowly, needing to do nothing at all, simply being present, will you feel your heart expand. Now, try practicing a little with me. Sit up straight, relax your shoulders, gently close your eyes. Inhale, feel your breath entering through your nose. Exhale, feel the warmth leaving your body. Inhale, you know you are inhaling. Exhale, you know you are exhaling. Each breath is a miracle. No need to try, no need to think about anything. Just listen to that rhythm of breath. Listen to the life present within you. In this moment, you don't need to say anything. Just breathing is enough. Whenever your mind is disturbed, whenever someone makes you want to react, stop and breathe. Silence doesn't mean you don't know, but that you know better than anyone that speaking sometimes only makes things more complicated. While silence is to reflect on oneself, to choose to speak with wisdom instead of emotion. The ancients had a saying, "A word uttered, 4 horses cannot catch it." Once said, it cannot be taken back, but silence always remains. The wise are not afraid of being misunderstood. They are only afraid of hurting others with unmindful words. Therefore, silence is a practice, an exercise of compassion in daily life. When we are silent, we are not only guarding our words, but also guarding our blessings. Blessings are not grand things, but precisely those moments when we know how to stop, to listen, to let our mind be at peace. A blessed person is one who has peace, and peace is only present in stillness. The Buddha once said, "The foolish think that speaking much makes them wise, but the wise know that conquering oneself is the greatest victory." Conquering oneself here is not self-suppression, but overcoming the urge to win, to prove, to be recognized. Silence is how the wise return to their inner self, where wisdom blossoms. You can try writing a small reminder to practice daily. Silence to hear the heart's voice. Every morning when you wake up, read that sentence, inhale and exhale, then smile. During the day, when someone says something that hurts you, remember that sentence. Don't react hastily. Let silence guide the way. Gradually, you will find your mind no longer easily disturbed. I want to tell you that silence is not loneliness. On the contrary, it is a space for the mind to return home. When you are quiet, you will feel life smiling with you. Every gust of wind, every ray of light, every breath is a gentle word from the universe. In that silence, you are no longer a small person amidst a noisy world, but a part of the whole, of profound peace. My dear friend, try practicing mindful silence for a day. No need to try hard. No need to do anything grand. Just speak a little less. Breathe deeper. Listen more carefully. Let your mind be like a lake in the early morning, calm yet full of vitality. In that stillness, wisdom will blossom, compassion will spread, and you will find that peace has never been far away. After we have learned to listen and know when to stop before uttering words that hurt people's hearts, perhaps now is the time for us to delve deeper into another lesson, the lesson of silence. Because sometimes speaking out is not always powerful. There are times when the greatest strength lies in the profound stillness of one's own mind. I want to tell you a very simple story, yet it contains a deep lesson about compassion, about how one person can transform another simply through silence. That story is about Mr. Kwang, a middle-aged man living in a small riverside neighborhood. He worked as a security guard for a construction site near his home. He was a big, strong man with a tanned face and a loud voice. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him as a straightforward person who spoke without beating around the bush. Whatever he thought, he said. But because of his fiery temper, he easily lost his composure, easily argued, and easily let his words hurt others. He guarded the neighborhood, but failed to guard the peace within his own mind. In those days, there was old Mr. Bay in the neighborhood, a gentle old man with white hair, always wearing an old conical hat and a faint smile. He lived alone, tending a small garden during the day, growing a few clumps of flowers and some rows of vegetables. People in the neighborhood liked him because he was kind and always helped others. But then one day, due to a small misunderstanding, Mr. Kwang got angry and spoke harshly to the old man. What happened was that morning, while he was cleaning up the construction area, he found someone had left trash in front of the gate. He was furious because he had reminded people many times, yet someone still threw trash indiscriminately. Just then, old Mr. Bay walked by, carrying a basket of vegetables. Mr. Kwang immediately yelled, "Old man, it's you again? I've told you so many times, and you still throw trash all over the place like this." Old Mr. Bay flinched, looked up at him, said nothing, just smiled faintly. The more Mr. Kwang looked at that smile, the angrier he became. He thought the old man was disrespecting him, that he was sneering. He added a few more harsh words, his voice sharp, but the old man remained silent. He just bent down, picked up the trash bags, put them in his basket, and slowly walked away. Not a word of explanation, not a single argument back. That day, Mr. Kwang was furious. He felt he had lost because the old man didn't react, didn't argue. In his heart, a strange discomfort arose, a mix of anger and shame. He went home, but was irritable all day, not understanding why his heart felt as heavy as a stone. Night fell, and he couldn't sleep, constantly recalling old Mr. Bay's gentle smile, remembering his kind eyes without a hint of resentment. The more he thought, the more he regretted. The next morning, he woke up early and went to the end of the alley, where he met the old man. He was, as always, bent over, watering his vegetable rows, looking as peaceful as if nothing had happened. Mr. Kwang approached, scratched his head, and said softly, "Mr. Bay, yesterday I was too angry. I said something wrong. I apologize." Old Mr. Bay looked up and smiled kindly. "Old people, Hearing the wind is noisy enough. Hearing people's words, I don't pay much mind. What is there to apologize for, sir?" Mr. Kuang stood silently. Something in his heart suddenly dissolved. A sense of lightness and peace spread through his chest. He bowed his head and said just one sentence. "You truly are a kind person." Old Mr. Bay smiled. "Whether one is kind or not also comes from within oneself, sir. I, too, used to be angry, used to be mad, used to argue to win. But then I realized talking a lot doesn't do any good. Only in silence can I hear my own heart's voice." From that day on, Mr. Kuang gradually changed. People in the neighborhood noticed he was less angry, spoke less loudly. When someone argued, he would just smile and say nothing. Some said, "Mr. Kuang is as gentle as Mr. Bay these days." He smiled without denying it. He said that from that day, he learned one thing. Only silence can conquer the anger in one's heart. You see, the story seems small, but it contains a great lesson. The greatest victory in a person's life is not winning against others, but winning against oneself. Conquering anger, conquering pride, conquering the ego that loves to win. Because once words are uttered, they're like an arrow shot. They cannot be taken back. Words can console, but they can also hurt. A word spoken without mindfulness can damage family affection and break years of friendship. The Buddha once taught that the wise speak little, keeping their mind as calm as a still pond that reflects the clouds and sky. An agitated mind leads to chaotic words. A chaotic mind leads to karma, born from words. The Buddha's teachings are simple, yet profound. When we speak, our mind is agitated. When we are silent, our mind settles down. And only when the mind is sufficiently still can we truly hear the voice of our own heart. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a manifestation of inner strength. Only those with inner power and wisdom are calm enough to be silent amidst storms. An impetuous person, easily reactive, easily angered, that is someone led by emotions. But a silent person is one who controls themselves, knowing clearly when to speak and when to stop. Someone asked me, "If I'm silent, will I be seen as weak or afraid?" I smiled and replied, "Silence is not to lose, but to win in peace. Because you might win an argument, but you'll lose a good night's sleep. You might win a verbal exchange, but you'll lose the peace in your heart. What good is that victory if your mind is still full of vexation?" Old Mr. Bay in that story might have been silent, not because he was afraid, but because he understood. He understood that anger is a fire, and words are wind. The more you speak, the more the fire rages. Only silence can extinguish the fire of anger. That is the wisdom of one who practices in every breath. I remember another teaching of the Buddha. When someone throws a stone at you, be like a lake. The stone only creates a few ripples before sinking, and the lake's surface becomes calm again. But if you are a pan of boiling oil, that stone will cause the oil to splash, burning you. How profound, isn't it? When we get angry, we are the ones who suffer first. The fire of anger does not burn others, but burns our own mind. One who knows silence is one who knows to save themselves before saving others. My dear friend, in this life, we cannot avoid words that hurt us. Some people misunderstand us. Some criticize, some attack. But if every time this happens, we react, we argue, then life will have no peaceful moments. But if we choose silence, smile, and keep our minds at peace, then people's words are just a passing breeze. Wind blowing across a lake can create waves, but if the lake is deep enough, the wind will eventually dissipate. The wise do not use words to contend, but use stillness to resolve. The foolish respond to anger with anger, creating karma upon karma. The wise respond to anger with compassion, causing karma to dissipate. When you are silent, you are sowing a wholesome seed, a seed of patience and wisdom. And that seed will blossom into flowers of peace in your mind. If one day you feel misunderstood, judged, or criticized, remember the image of old Mr. Bay. He didn't speak, didn't explain, just smiled gently. That smile was the most profound answer. Because there are things that words cannot explain. Only time, only actions, only your peaceful energy can prove the truth. And then, like Mr. Kwang, you will see that silence does not diminish our value, but makes us shine in our own way. People will recognize the maturity, stability, and inclusiveness in that very silence. Because one who talks a lot is not necessarily right, and one who is silent is not necessarily wrong. Sometimes the silent one has seen everything, understood everything. They just choose peace over winning. Now, I want you to try a small practice. When someone says something that bothers you, take a deep breath, hold it for 3 seconds, then exhale very slowly. During that time, don't react. Just observe the emotions rising in your heart. What is that emotion? Is it anger, sadness, or hurt? Look directly at it. Breathe with it. Then smile. When you can smile at anger, you have conquered yourself. In the evening, before sleeping, you can write a small reminder. Silence is wisdom. Patience is strength. Place that paper by your bedside. Every morning when you wake up, read it once. Gradually, you will find that the small things that once annoyed you will no longer affect you much. Your mind will become softer, gentler, broader. And you know what? That very silence, that gentle energy, will spread. Others may change because of you, just as Mr. Kwang changed thanks to old Mr. Bay. Sometimes we don't need to persuade anyone with words. We just need to live fully in peace, and others will naturally feel it. That is the most profound way to transform others, transforming with energy, not with words. I want to send you a reminder from the Buddha. Words are like honey. They can be sweet, but they can also stick. Use words to sow peace, not to sow suffering. When you cannot speak wholesome words, silence is precisely meditation. My dear friend, try to speak a little less, be silent a little more, not to avoid, but to listen. When the mind is calm, wisdom will shine. When the heart is at peace, all gossip will dissipate. Let silence become a mirror, reflecting your compassion. We cannot make the world stop talking, but we can make our hearts stop being agitated. We cannot make others silent, but we can choose stillness for ourselves. And from that place of stillness, peace will blossom. I wish you, from today, know when to choose silence when needed. Know how to use compassion instead of arguments. Know how to keep your mind like a still lake. so that no matter what anyone says, you still smile. No matter which way the wind blows, you remain serene. And in that very silence, you will find that peace has never been out there, but always within your own gentle breaths. My dear friend, in today's world, everyone seems to be talking. Social media opens up like a giant river, where everyone can cast their thoughts into the current. Words are no longer confined to small conversations, but have spread everywhere, faster than wind, stronger than waves. Just a comment, a rumor, a seemingly harmless judgment can hurt a soul, shattering a person's trust. Amidst countless voices, have you ever felt tired? Tired of hearing too much, talking too much, and enduring too many words from others? There are times when we just want to be out, but our hearts are dragged into meaningless arguments. There are times when we speak out to defend ourselves, but the more we speak, the more misunderstood we become. The more we explain, the less people listen. The more we justify, the more suspicious people become. And then we find ourselves exhausted in a world where everyone wants to talk and few are willing to listen. In such a world, silence sometimes becomes the most powerful voice of wisdom and compassion. The Buddha once taught that speech must have 3 elements: truthfulness, timeliness, and compassion. These 3 elements seem easy, but are extremely difficult. For words, if lacking one of these 3 elements, can cause suffering, not only to others, but also to oneself. Sometimes we speak what is true, but not at the right time. Sometimes we speak at the right time, but without compassion. And sometimes we speak with good intentions, but not truthfully. These 3 elements are like 3 protective doors for verbal karma, helping us know when to speak, when to be silent, when to listen, and when to stop. Words are energy. Every word we utter carries the energy of our mind. If the mind is angry, words, no matter how soft, will have thorns. If the mind is loving, words, no matter how serious, will still have warmth. When you speak with compassion, your words become cool, refreshing rain, helping the listener calm down and helping you find peace. But if you speak from ego, from anger, then words are like a fire burning everything, burning your own heart as well. I want to tell you a very beautiful story from life, yet also very profound. The story of a teacher named Lan, an ordinary woman, but within her silence and trust lay a strength that many people did not expect. Ms. Lan taught at a high school in a small rural area. The school was not large, and most students were from working-class families. Parents were busy earning a living, so they had little time to care for their children. Tuan was one of them. He spoke little, often sat alone, and was often teased by his friends for his reserved demeanor. One day, a rumor appeared online that Tuan had stolen a classmate's phone. No one knew who started the rumor, but within a single morning, it had spread throughout the school. Friends shunned Tuan, teachers whispered. Parents looked at him with wary eyes. Ms. Lan, his homeroom teacher, knew about it. Many advised her to be tough, to make Tuan admit his mistake to maintain classroom discipline. But Ms. Lan didn't do that. She didn't call Tuan in for criticism, didn't scold him, nor did she rush to defend him. She just silently observed. Every day she watched that student, quietly coming to class, sitting at the back of the room with his head bowed, his eyes sad, as if carrying an injustice that no one wanted to see. One day after school, Ms. Lan called Tuan to stay. She just said, "I believe you." She didn't know the truth, but she believed in his eyes. Just that one sentence almost made the student cry. From that day on, although still shunned, Tuan was no longer as desperate as before. He studied harder, attended school regularly, and tried every day. A few weeks later, the truth came to light. It turned out the other student's phone wasn't stolen at all. It had just fallen into their personal locker. When people found out, they were ashamed and rushed to Tuan to apologize. Ms. Lan said nothing. She just gently told the students, "Before you say anything about anyone, light a candle of compassion in your heart, because your words can illuminate, and they can also burn." The whole class was silent. Tuan's eyes looked at her, filled with gratitude. From then on, the students understood that compassion sometimes doesn't need to be expressed in words, but through trust, through a knowing silence. It was Ms. Lan's silence that saved a soul from deep hurt, because she didn't rush to judge, wasn't swept into the current of gossip. She maintained her calm and clear faith. Hearing this story, I suddenly remembered the Buddha's teaching. Before speaking, pass through 3 gates. 1. Is what you say true? 2. Will what you say bring benefit? 3. Does what you say arise from a compassionate heart? If all 3 gates are open, then speak. If one of the 3 is closed, be silent. Because words can save people and can also kill people. A harsh word is like a poisoned arrow. A wholesome word is like a drop of nectar healing the heart's wound. You see, in this era, people talk a lot, but understand very little. People compete to speak, but few are willing to listen. Some people carry a heart full of sadness. Just one gentle word would be enough to lift them, but they receive only judgments. Some people are struggling to live. Just one word of encouragement would be enough to help them continue, but they are drowned by harsh words. Therefore, sometimes a timely, heartfelt word can save a person's entire life. But to speak such a word requires an awakened heart. Compassion does not come from intellect, but from understanding and mindfulness. When you understand that everyone is suffering in their own way, you will no longer want to use words to hurt anyone. When you see that everyone is battling their fears and their hurts, you will choose to speak less and listen more. And when you know that words create karma, you will begin to speak with caution and love. The Buddha taught that gentle speech leads to a peaceful mind. That statement is simple, yet profound. When words become gentle, the mind also becomes gentle. When words are wholesome, karma also becomes wholesome. A practitioner not only practices body and mind, but also must practice speech. Because verbal karma is something very easy to create, but difficult to undo. A single word can make people lose trust, can break a relationship. But those same words, if transformed, can reconnect, can heal, can open a new path. My dear friend, sometimes we just need to pause for a moment before speaking, just 1 second. But it's enough to transform. When you are about to say something that will hurt someone, take a deep breath and ask your heart, is this word necessary? Will it bring peace? Does it truly come from love? If the answer is no, then silence is the wisest choice. I invite you right now to try a small practice. close your eyes. Inhale deeply. Exhale very slowly. Recall a time when you said something that made someone sad, or a time when someone said something that hurt you. Feel that sensation again. See? Words are light, yet heavy. Invisible, yet possess immense power. Now, take another deep breath and gently say in your mind, I vow to speak truthful, wholesome, compassionate words. Just a small vow. But if you keep it in your heart every day, you will see yourself change. Every morning when you wake up, before starting a new day, you can remind yourself, today I will speak with an awakened heart. Before saying anything, you can pause for a moment. Look into the eyes of the person opposite you. Feel the energy within them. Then speak. When you speak from understanding, others will listen with respect. When you speak with compassion, others will open their hearts to receive. Sometimes, compassion is not found in speaking many beautiful words, but in a silent presence, in an inclusive gaze, in a gentle smile, or an understanding nod, like Teacher Lan in that story. She didn't preach, didn't argue right or wrong. She simply believed. That belief was an expression of compassion. When you believe in the goodness within people, that energy will spread. Those you trust will be uplifted, will stand up on their own. In this world full of gossip, perhaps the hardest thing is not speaking eloquently, but knowing when to be silent. Not speaking correctly, but knowing how to speak wholesomely. A gentle word can resolve animosity. A harsh word can create more karma. When we learn to speak with compassion, we not only save others, but also save ourselves from verbal karma, from future regrets. My dear friend, if one day you find yourself caught in a swirl of verbal exchanges, remember Mitzlan. Remember that compassion doesn't need to be proven. It just needs to be felt. A compassionate heart always radiates peaceful energy. And when you are peaceful, others will also be peaceful. When your words have compassion, you are creating blessings. When your words carry hatred, you are creating karmic obstacles. Therefore, every day, choose to speak words that lighten people's hearts. When you praise someone, praise with sincerity. When you offer feedback, speak with love. When you have to say something difficult, say it with the energy of understanding. The Buddha once said, "An evil word is like throwing mud against the wind. Eventually, the mud will fall back on you." That saying reminds us that every word returns to the speaker. When we speak wholesomely, we receive wholesome results. When we speak unwholesomely, we receive unwholesome results. Therefore, being silent when you cannot speak wholesome words is a way to preserve blessings, preserve your mind, and preserve peace. Today, I want to offer you a small practice. Every time you are about to say something, ask yourself 3 times. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Is it kind? If all 3 are yes, then speak with gentleness and the light of love. If one of the 3 is no, then smile and remain silent. Silence does not mean weakness, but wisdom. Because when words are illuminated by mindfulness, they are no longer just sounds, but light. Finally, I want to reiterate a very simple thing. A single word can save a person's life. Speak with an awakened heart, with mindful breath, with expansive love. Then your words will no longer be just sounds, but healing energy. The listener will feel it, and you yourself will also feel your heart light as a cloud, peaceful as water, bright as moonlight, reflecting on a tranquil lake. May you, from today, know how to choose to speak peaceful words. Know how to keep your mind pure. Know how to sow love with every breath and every word, so that every word you utter becomes a small flower blossoming in people's hearts, bringing the fragrance of compassion and the light of awakening amidst the many worldly affairs. My dear friend, as we navigate the ups and downs of life, perhaps each of us has experienced moments of being misunderstood, slandered, criticized, and gossiped about by others. Some people, just hearing their name in someone else's conversation, feel their hearts stir, their pulse quicken, and their minds become uneasy. Even knowing they are not wrong, they still feel uncomfortable, still want to explain, still want everyone to understand them. And the more they try to clarify, the more they explain, the more they get caught in an endless cycle of gossip and drama. Have you ever felt that way? In today's world, where social media is a magnified mirror of every word, where a single wrong statement can be dissected, an unintentional action judged, maintaining a peaceful mind amidst gossip is a great spiritual practice. More than ever, people today are hurt not by poverty or illness, but by words. Praise makes people happy, but criticism can cause an entire soul to collapse. We are easily swayed by others' words, forgetting that those sounds are just wind blowing through our ears, unable to define who we are. Sometimes we live our entire lives just to prove to the world that we are good. But the more we try to prove it, the more exhausted we feel. Because worldly words are like shifting winds, changing by the hour. The Buddha taught that in life there are 8 worldly winds that always blow into people's minds: gain and loss, honor and dishonor, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Ordinary people are shaken by these winds, but the wise stand firm amidst the storm. Do you see? When people praise us, we easily become happy, easily self-satisfied. When criticized, we easily suffer, easily complain. When we gain, we feel life is worth living. When we lose, we feel life is meaningless. Thus, our minds are like leaves in the 4 seasons, swept away by the wind without an anchor. But if our mind is like a firm tree root, even if a storm arises, branches may sway, leaves may fall, but the roots remain deep in the earth, and no wind can uproot it. Keeping the mind at peace amidst praise and blame is learning to stand firm amidst the 8 worldly winds. I know some words people say hurt you deeply. Sometimes it's just a gentle sentence, but it's like a needle piercing the heart. Sometimes it's a thoughtless criticism from a loved one. Sometimes it's a false rumor. Sometimes it's a taunt from someone who doesn't like us. After hearing it, you feel sad, resentful, wanting to argue back, wanting to prove your innocence. But my friend, the more you try to prove it, the more you waste your energy on things that aren't worth it. Others say one sentence, you think about it all night. People gossip for a moment. You suffer for a week. Meanwhile, the speakers are indifferent, completely unaware that an unintentional word has caused you such unease. A student of the Buddha needs to understand one thing. If you cannot guard your mind against what comes to your ears, then you yourself are creating more karma. Verbal karma does not only come from the words we speak, but also from how we react to others' words. If we hear criticism and get angry, if we hear false accusations and want revenge, then even if we don't speak, our mind has sown seeds of anger, and those seeds will sprout into suffering. Therefore, the Buddha taught that the wise do not need to react to gossip, but simply smile, viewing it as clouds passing across the sky. There is a story I really want to tell you. The story of Zen Master Min-an, who taught his entire life with just 2 words. Is that so? In those days, the Zen master lived in a small temple on a mountainside. He was a gentle, soft-spoken person, always living in mindfulness. The villagers respected him greatly. But one day, a young woman in the village became pregnant without a husband. Afraid of her parents' scolding, she lied and said the father of the child was the Zen master. The rumor spread like wildfire. The whole village was agitated. People came to the temple to scold, slander, and some even wanted to drive the master away. In the face of all the accusations, the master said nothing, just smiled and gently replied, "Is that so?" Afterward, he adopted the baby when it was born. A year later, the young woman, unable to bear her conscience's torment, came and knelt before the master, crying and confessing that she had lied. The villagers then realized the truth. Everyone came to apologize to the master, admiring his patience and unwavering mind. But the master still just smiled kindly and replied, "Is that so?" From then on, people called him Zen Master. Is that so? The one who taught his entire life with a single phrase of stillness. You see, sometimes silence is the most profound answer. If the Zen master had rushed to explain then, perhaps no one would have believed him, and his words would only have made the storm worse. But by maintaining a calm mind, he allowed the truth to reveal itself. Silence is not weakness, but the strength of one who clearly understands cause and effect. Because he knew that if he had done nothing wrong, his wholesome karma would blossom at the right time. And if he had done something wrong, no matter how eloquently he spoke, he could not hide the karma. In life, sometimes one must learn to say, "Is that so?" When someone speaks ill of you, you can smile and think, "Is that so?" When someone praises you excessively, you should also smile. Is that so? When life brings glory or humiliation, gain or loss, you still maintain inner peace. Is that so? Is not indifference or apathy, but an understanding that all praise and blame are temporary. One who praises today may criticize tomorrow. One who criticizes today may praise tomorrow. Worldly words are like flowing water that cannot be held. The Buddha taught that the wise do not chase after praise or blame, are not swayed by the 8 worldly winds. Because if the mind is always outward bound, you will never find peace. Today you live to please others. Tomorrow you have to change to satisfy them. Your whole life will be like a leaf on a river, not knowing where you are drifting. But when your mind turns inward, you begin to realize that all the external words are just echoes, while the truest voice is within yourself. I once met a woman nearly 50 years old. She worked as a merchant, and once, when she was falsely accused of embezzling money, she suffered for many months. Every day, she went online to explain, called every relative, every customer to make them understand. But the more she spoke, the more suspicious people became. One day, she went to the temple, sat before the Buddha statue, and wept. The abbot looked at her and said, "People say one word and you suffer for a year. So are they your master? If you let their words control your mind, you are losing your own freedom." She froze. That day, she began to practice silence. Day by day, she just quietly worked, quietly lived a good life. After some time, people saw that she was still gentle and kind, and gradually regained trust. The false accusation also disappeared on its own. She told me, "I realized that only when I am silent does my mind return to peace." That is what the Buddha called an unmoving mind. When your mind is no longer disturbed by praise or blame, no longer hurt by worldly words, that is when wisdom has arisen. Wisdom is not knowing much, but knowing when to stop. When others speak, you don't need to react. When others judge, you just listen silently. Because you know everyone is speaking from their own karma and perception. If they are suffering, they will speak from suffering. If they are angry, they will speak from anger. If you react, you are only taking their karma upon yourself. But if you are silent, you are keeping your mind pure, untainted by the dust of the world. The Buddha once taught that words must have 3 elements: truthfulness, timeliness, and compassion. This means that words can bring blessings, but can also create karma. If what is said brings no benefit, no compassion, then even if it is true, it is useless. Therefore, sometimes silence is the most compassionate speech, because in silence there is understanding, there is listening, there is unspoken love. When you hear someone speak falsely about you and don't react, you are practicing compassion. When you hear someone lie and don't get angry, you are cultivating wisdom. Try taking a deep breath, then relax your shoulders. Let go of your mind. Right in this breath, you can hear how many voices in your head are gradually calming down. Inhale. You feel the breath entering your abdomen. Exhale. You let go of all worldly praise and blame. When your mind is calm, you will see that there is nothing worth being sad about, nothing you need to prove. Just by living authentically, living wholesomely, wholesome causes will bear good fruits. You can practice this every morning by sitting still for 5 minutes, closing your eyes, breathing slowly and silently, affirming in your heart, "I am not praise. I am not blame. I am just this breath." Every time your mind is disturbed by what someone says, return to your breath and smile. Is that so? When you repeat this long enough, your mind will become as steadfast as a calm lake. No matter how much wind blows, only the moonlight of wisdom illuminates the waters within. My dear friend, living in this world, everyone wishes to be loved, understood, and respected. But not everyone understands us. Not everyone loves us. If you always rely on others' approval, you will always suffer. When someone praises you, you feel happy, but that happiness depends on others, so it is very fragile. When someone criticizes you, you feel sad, but that sadness also comes from others, so you cannot control it. Only when you learn to disregard worldly words will your mind truly be free. Disregard here does not mean abandoning responsibility, but abandoning attachment. You still live, still do good things, but you don't let praise or blame disturb you. I remember the words of a Zen master who once said, If a word of praise makes you happy, a word of blame will make you suffer. Therefore, the wise are not happy when praised, nor do they suffer when blamed. The wise merely smile because they understand that everything is impermanent. People who love you today may hate you tomorrow. People who honor you today may humble you tomorrow. But if you keep your mind like a rock in a river, no matter how strong the current flows, the rock remains unmoved. And you know what? When you truly maintain a peaceful mind in the face of worldly words, you will possess a very special kind of energy. That energy doesn't need to be spoken, but anyone who comes near will feel it. Just like Zen Master Min On, he didn't preach, didn't argue, just a smile, a glance made others feel at peace. When your mind is clear, you will radiate peaceful energy. And that, precisely, is the most profound teaching you can offer to the world. Now, I want you to sit still, close your eyes, breathe very slowly, and listen to your inner voice once more. Inhale, you know you are inhaling. Exhale, you know you are exhaling. You are not praise, you are not blame, you are not others' gaze. You are breath, you are life, you are the present moment blossoming in stillness. Practice smiling when someone says something about you, and just silently say in your heart, "Is that so?" When your mind is at peace, worldly words will be light as clouds. When your wisdom shines, all gossip will dissipate like mist. Keeping the mind at peace is not to escape life, but to walk through life without being swept away by it. When you understand that, you will see that worldly words are just echoes in the wind, while true peace lies within yourself. I wish that no matter how much praise or blame, how much gossip you encounter, you always maintain a pure heart and a tranquil mind. Live like Zen Master Min On. Just one phrase, "Is that so?" can resolve countless things. Live like a peaceful lake, reflecting everything without clinging to anything. And remember, only when you let go of worldly words will you truly hear the voice of the Buddha in your heart. Sometimes we think that speaking out will lighten our heart, make us understood, or clear our name. But the more we speak, the heavier our heart becomes. Once words escape the mouth, they are like arrows shot, unable to be retrieved. And sometimes, just one word is enough to lose many wholesome connections. The more we grow, the more we understand. Not everything needs to be voiced. Not everyone needs to understand us. Some things, it's enough for us to understand. And the rest, let the wind carry away. You see, in life today, people talk a lot. Social media, phones, messages, videos, meetings, meals. Everywhere there are human voices. But the more voices there are, the emptier people's hearts become. We can speak hundreds of sentences a day, but it's hard to speak one from the heart. We are good at responding, but poor at listening to understand. Many times, just an ill-timed word, a hasty reaction, can fracture family bonds, distance friends, and lead to misunderstandings among colleagues. And then we ourselves are the ones who suffer the most, according to the Buddha's teachings. Among the countless karmas that humans create, verbal karma is one of the deepest and most profound. This is because words originate from the mind, and if the mind is not pure, words become knives that harm others. Therefore, The Buddha always advised, before speaking, ask yourself, is this word true? Will this word bring peace? Is this word timely? If all three are true, then speak. But if even one of the three is false, it's best to be silent. Because sometimes silence is not weakness, but a profound spiritual practice. I once heard a monk tell a story about a man who practiced Buddhism. He had practiced for many years, but still often got angry. He frequently argued with people about spiritual principles. He thought he understood a lot, so he needed to speak out to instruct others. But the more he spoke, the more he was criticized by people, and the more he was surrounded by vexations. One day, he met an old Zen master and asked, I study the Buddha's teachings and understand a lot, but why is my mind still restless? The Zen master smiled and said, You talk too much. Those who talk a lot often forget to listen. If you don't listen, how can you truly understand your own mind? Those words were like a mirror, illuminating his mind. From then on, he began to practice silence, no longer arguing, just listening. A few years later, anyone who met him felt a peaceful energy radiating from him, like a calm lake. People said it wasn't because he practiced a lot, but because he had learned the art of silence. In meditation, silence is called the sound of wisdom. When your mind is calm, you hear your own voice. When your mouth is wholesome, your wisdom shines. But when you always have to talk, always want to prove something, always try to reason, your mind has no room for stillness. Just as water that is always agitated cannot reflect the moon, only when the mind is calm can it see the true nature of life. Another story I want to tell you is about a girl named Mai. She used to be very sensitive, easily hurt. Especially when someone said something unkind about her, she always wanted to justify, explain, and prove that she wasn't wrong. But the more she spoke, the more others misunderstood. One day, in her exhaustion, she went to a temple and talked to a monk. She recounted all the things that had hurt her. The monk just smiled and said, When someone throws mud at you, do you need to chase after it to pick it up? If you don't pick it up, the mud will dry and fall off on its own. But if you try to pick it up, you will get even dirtier. She was stunned upon hearing this. From then on, she learned to be silent in the face of gossip, learned to smile instead of reacting. And the strange thing was that from the moment she chose silence, her life became more peaceful. No one spoke ill of her anymore. No one bothered her, and she herself felt a lightness in her heart. The Buddha taught that when your mind is pure, the world around you also becomes pure. Therefore, speaking little is not just guarding words, but also guarding the mind. Every gentle word is a seed of blessing you sow in life. Every timely silence is a time you avoid karma. And every time you listen with your heart, you are practicing a very profound meditation. Because listening is not just with the ears, but with the whole heart. The wise do not need to speak much to prove themselves. They know that truth does not need words to shine, just as the sun does not need praise to shine. A flower does not need to speak to spread its fragrance. The deeper people understand the Dharma, the less they speak, because they know that words are just a means, while the truth lies in life itself, in every mindful breath. I want to pause with you for a moment to breathe. take a deep breath in. Feel the cool, fresh air entering your body. Then exhale very gently. Let go of all the words, all the vexations, all the gossip you have carried. Inhale, a tranquil mind. Exhale, a peaceful heart. Practice this meditation every time you want to say something, but are not sure if it's beneficial. Before speaking, breathe. When you breathe, you will hear the voice of your heart. If you see someone speaking ill of you, smile and say in your mind, "Let them. I know who I am." If you see someone praising you excessively, don't rush into joy. Just say in your mind, "This is also karma, also a challenge." Because praise or blame, gain or loss, joy or sorrow, all are the 8 worldly winds that the Buddha once taught. Praise, blame, gain, loss, pleasure, pain, honor, dishonor. The wise do not let these 8 winds disturb their minds, because if we are swayed by the wind, we cannot be firm. And only when our mind is firm are we truly free. Remember the story of Zen Master Min-an. One day, someone falsely accused the master, saying he had done wrong to someone in the village. The rumor spread everywhere, and his distraught disciples asked him why he didn't explain. He just gently said, "Is that so?" Then he continued his work, his practice, remaining calm, as if nothing had happened. Many years later, the accuser encountered misfortune, and in their dying moments confessed their wrongdoing and apologized to the master. The villagers learned the story and came to apologize. The master just smiled. "Is that so?" People wept, but the master remained serene. For him, gossip was just like a passing cloud. Once it passed, it was gone. That is the wisdom of one who knows how to let go. Disregarding worldly words is not indifference, but knowing that everything is impermanent. Praise will pass. Criticism will pass. Those who understand you don't need many words. Those who don't understand, no matter what you say, it's useless. The more you try to explain, the more you get caught in the whirlwind of gossip. But when you are silent, everything dissipates like morning mist. The Buddha taught that the wise speak what needs to be said at the right time, in the right way, with the right intention. The foolish speak what doesn't need to be said, at the wrong time, with the wrong intention. Therefore, to have blessings, one must first learn to guard one's words. To have wisdom, one must learn to guard one's mind. Speaking little is a blessing. Silence is wisdom. Because one who knows timely silence has avoided countless karmic retributions. One who knows how to speak wholesome words is sowing seeds of blessing. My dear friend, from now on, practice speaking a little less, listening a little more. Before speaking, pause for a second to ask your heart, is this word necessary? Will it bring peace? If not, then silence is also the most beautiful answer. Speak with a gentle voice, with a compassionate heart, not to win an argument, but to sow wholesome connections. Every day, you can remind yourself with a short sentence. Say what is worth saying. Guard what is worth guarding. Let go of what is worth letting go. That sentence is enough to help you remember that it's not the mouth that makes us wise, but the mind that knows when to stop at the right time. When you know how to stop speaking, life will be different. People will feel comfortable being around you because you don't hurt anyone with words. Your mind will also become lighter because you don't have to regret what you've said. Gradually, you will see. Just by being silently present and smiling, the world naturally becomes tranquil. Now, I invite you to close your eyes with me. Inhale. Feel your breath going in deeply. Exhale. Let go of all the noise in your mind. Inhale, knowing you are living in the present moment. Exhale. Smile at yourself. Let this vow resonate in your heart. May my mind be tranquil. May my mouth speak only wholesome words. May my life be light as a flying cloud. If you practice this every day, just maintaining such a mind for a moment, you are already practicing. Because the Dharma is not far away, but lies within every breath, every word, every thought of yours. And if today you hear these words, perhaps it's because your mind is ready for a deeper peace. Start with a very small thing. Speak one less sentence. Listen one more time, and smile at things you cannot change. Life is already noisy enough. Be the one who brings stillness. Finally, I wish you, the listener, always have peace in every word, every thought, every breath. May you learn to embrace serene silence. Let go of gossip, so your heart is light as a flying cloud, so that no matter how the winds of this life change direction, your mind remains as firm as a mountain. Because speaking little is a blessing, and silence is wisdom.